Hey, I'm Stephanie, and I really enjoy shopping. I like researching products and comparing options, imagining how things might fit into my life. And Black Friday and holiday shopping season in general, including the new year, is basically a whole section of the year that's just dedicated to activating that part of the brain. This year, though, I'm noticing something interesting. There were quite a few things that I genuinely wanted that made sense on paper and that I could have even justified, and yet I didn't buy them. So today I want to talk about 5 things that I didn't buy on Black Friday, even though I was very tempted to. I haven't even bought them in the new year, and why, even now, a few months later, I am relieved about every single one of those decisions. This video aligns with my Adagio mindset, which is all about slowing down my shopping so that there's just more time to enjoy what I do choose to buy. I have a whole series on that if you're interested. And just to be clear, this is not a judgment on shopping or wanting beautiful things. I enjoy both. This is more about how sometimes saying no creates more room to enjoy everything else. If you bought any of these things, by the way, and love them, feel free to share that in the comments. And if you skipped something that you were tempted by, I would love to hear about that too. When I looked back at my almost purchases, I realized that they kind of fell into 3 specific buckets for me. Some of them would have just added too many variables for me at once. Some of them were beautiful, but they just weren't really made for me. And some of them just came down to timing. And we're going to go through each of them one by one. Category 1 is the too many variables for me right now category. So let's first talk about the Givenchy Prisme Libre Loose Powder Blush. This has been on my wish list for a couple of years in the shades 2 Taffeta Rosé and 4 Organza Cyan. And every single time I go into town and I stop into the department store to spritz my current favorite wish list perfume, I will often end up at the Givenchy counter. And on those days, I conveniently always forget to apply blush before I leave the house. So every single time, whoever is working the counter suggests that I try shade 4 of that blush, which is Organza Cyan. And every single time, I am really happy with the way it looks. The finish is so blurring, it's almost watercolor-like, and it reminds me a little bit of the Gucci bronzer that I love so much in the sense that it smooths everything out and never looks heavy. I have come very close to buying this blush several times, especially recently because it contains talc, which is the ingredient that caused my favorite Givenchy setting powder to be reformulated. There is a small part of my brain that's constantly worrying that this one might disappear or change before I can get my hands on it, but I figured I still have time to slow down. So once again, this sale season, I fought the urge to buy it. But when I really sat with the decision, I realized something, that I already own a handful of blushes that I truly love. I recently did a declutter if you want to see what those are. And if I bring in another one, especially something that feels this special, I really want to have the time and the mental space to enjoy it and celebrate it properly. I want it to feel like a real splurge. So instead of buying it, I put it on my Christmas wish list again this year. And again, I didn't get it. And while it is still very much on my radar for the future, I'm glad that I didn't add yet another variable in an already lovely rotation. But I am going to keep an eye on my domestic blush situation this year. And if I feel like I would genuinely have the space mentally and physically to add something new, that Givenchy blush will probably be the one. Non-purchase number 2 is from INNBEAUTY Project. They are Extreme Cream Eye Firming and Contouring Refillable Eye Cream. Now, this eye cream has been discussed everywhere on the internet, and I think I understand why. People talk about things like improved firmness and reduced puffiness, help with drooping and sagging, and visible smoothing. And eyelid sagging and under eye texture are things that I am starting to notice on myself more, so of course, this caught my attention. Now, I am not really an eye cream person. Most of the time, I just bring my facial skincare up under my eyes. The exception is something maybe like the Belief Eye Balm, which I've used several times through samples and gifts with purchase, even though I've never bought it. And I really like it as an under eye primer and for touching up dryness during the day if my concealer looks a little bit dry. So I probably would have tried the INNBEAUTY eye cream except for one thing. I was about to start my great skinvestigation. For this project, I am testing skincare in a very deliberate way, one variable at a time, so that I can actually tell what's doing what. I have a feeling experiences like this will make me much more confident in my decisions surrounding skincare. Because when I do spend money, I want to know that it is actually contributing something to my skin, and deliberate testing like this will give me that. So even though this eye cream is still very interesting to me, and it still has my attention, this simply wasn't the moment for it. Category 2 is beautiful things that simply are not made for me, and this category contains the Danessa Myricks Lightwork 7 Freedom Palette. This palette was objectively stunning. The format is flexible, the finishes are striking, and the neutral shades were what pulled me in. What gave me pause were those cooler tones and some of the more colorful shades. Now, before buying it, I built my own cover version of this palette using eyeshadows that I already own, and I will link that video because it ended up being incredibly helpful for me. I didn't perfectly dupe every color or finish. In fact, some people in the comments were very keen on telling me that, but the point wasn't to create a perfect dupe. It was to get close enough to understand how it would function for me if I were to buy it, and that's exactly what it did. So once I completed that and I had that BYOP in my own hand, something became very clear. I barely reached for it. Now, I've done similar exercises like this with the Makeup by Mario Neutrals, the Nature palette, and the Lisa Eldridge Desert Gleam palette, and I reached for those cover version palettes much more often. In fact, I even brought my Makeup by Mario dupe with me on this trip, despite the fact that I initially created this palette months ago. Recreating the Lightwork 7 palette showed me that even though I admired it deeply from afar, the color story just wasn't something that I naturally gravitated towards. But I'm also learning about how color, shape, and texture work together in general. I still believe that everyone should wear whatever makes them feel confident and beautiful, despite what any book, theory, or style guru says. At the same time, though, learning style theory is helping me to understand why certain finishes or intensities don't feel quite like me. As much as I love sparkle, I'm learning that my taste has been shifting towards softer gleams and more nuanced finishes, and some less extreme shine and color. So while I still admire this palette from afar to this day, I am genuinely glad that I didn't bring it home. And category 3 is the wrong timing. The first product here is the Pradalines pencil in shade 7 Menta from Prada. This pale green eyeliner was very tempting to me. I like using a light liner in my lower waterline to make my eyes look bigger. And right now I'm using the Too Faced Killer Liner in the shade Killer Cashmere, which is a creamy nude that brightens without looking too stark like a white liner would. My lower lash line can be a bit red, so the idea of using a pale green as a subtle color corrector was really appealing to me. But before buying it, I asked myself the question I always need to ask myself as someone who has duped her own collection many times in the past. And that is, do I already have something like this? And the answer was, kind of. I own the 24/7 liner from Urban Decay in the shade Freak, which is a lime green shimmer liner. And the formula is great, but it just doesn't work for this purpose. The shimmer draws attention to areas that I would rather downplay, and the color itself is just far too vivid to work as a color corrector on my muted skin tone, even if I only apply a thin layer. And believe me, I tried. So this wouldn't have been a direct dupe for that, but I could have used it for the same purpose that I use my Killer Cashmere liner. And when I thought about how often I actually line my waterline, the answer became pretty clear. The reality is that I go through these eyeliners very slowly, and eyeliner was one of the products on my list of things that I told myself I wasn't going to buy in 2025. If you want to see what else is on that list, I'll link it here and in the show notes. And let me know if you want me to do a follow-up video to see whether I held to that list or not. But back to the topic at hand, eyeliner. I have enough right now. When my current liner runs out, the Prada pencil could be a great option, but right now it's simply too early. And the reason that I know that for sure is because I am traveling. And when I packed my bag, I didn't even bring my Killer Cashmere liner with me, which tells me that it was forgettable enough that I don't need to dupe it. And then we have Angel Share by Kilian. I love the way that smells. I just love fragrance in general. I enjoy going through the motions of putting it on, taking a moment for myself, and the scent memories that I associate with things. Never mind smelling good throughout the day. Now, I have been visiting the department store in town just to spritz Angel Share for years at this point, and I have come very close to buying it several times. Most of the time, if I'm being honest, it's the full bottle, since I like that fragrance so much and the bottle is pretty lovely. But on Black Friday, it was the travel size because that just felt like the more practical option for me. And that went in and out of my cart more times than I care to admit. What stopped me from getting it was looking honestly at how I actually use fragrance. I really enjoy wearing it, but I don't wear it every day. And I don't even wear my favorites necessarily every week. Plus, the fragrances that I love they just all tend to be expensive. And when I really do the math, it becomes obvious to me that buying one new fragrance every year would be too much for me, both in the usage department and financially. Given my typical usage and the price point that I enjoy, I think every 5 years would probably be more realistic. Plus, I want fragrance to feel like a true splurge, something that I savor really slowly, not something that I add because there's a sale. So once again, I walked away. And once again, I think I'm even glad that I did because it's one less piece of inventory that I have to clean. It's one less item to distract me from the other lovely fragrances that I already have. And it gives me an excuse to go into town and make normal things a special occasion by spritzing it at that department store. Looking back at these 5 almost purchases, I am pretty relieved that I didn't make them, and I don't feel deprived. Slowing down hasn't made me enjoy beauty less. I think it might have actually made me enjoy it more because the things that I do bring in have room to really matter. So if you enjoy hearing people talk about why they didn't buy something, then you might enjoy more content like this. Thanks for hanging out, and to all of my patrons and channel members, including my Adagio angels, for making slower content like this possible. I hope that we can all remember that even stumbling is a form of moving forward. So let's stumble in style.